Hi roommate, it's Miss Moline. We tried to actually film out by the pool area today and Blue was whining, and so now that we're in the part of the yard that he is, which I'm on the trampoline, we should have a quiet place to read. And Evie promises not to bounce me too much. Yeah, okay. Chapter 4, The Case of the Curious Clues. Once the room was quiet, I hopped on my wheel and spun as fast as my legs would go. Spinning helps me think, and I had a lot of thinking to do. I waited and waited for Aldo to come in and clean. Maybe he would let me in on what had happened. Suddenly, I was blinded and Aldo's voice boomed, "Hey buddies, how's it going?" "Things are unsqueakably bad," I told him as my eyes adjusted to the lights. Aldo wheeled his cleaning cart into room 26 and toward our table. "I guess you heard about Mrs. Brisbane," he said, leaning down to look in my cage. What happened?" I screeched. Aldo shook his head. "Who'd have thought? I don't have to tell you what I think of Mrs. Brisbane. She inspired me to want to be a teacher." Aldo goes to school in the daytime so he can teach school someday. He's an excellent cleaner, but I think he'll be a great teacher too. Like I said to Maria, "Boy, you never know what's going to happen next." Maria was Aldo's wife and a special human to me. "I don't even know what happened today," I tried to tell him. I know, he said. "I miss her too." Then Aldo went to work. Usually, I love to watch him clean. He sweeps and swoops. He dusts and polishes. He hums and sings, and sometimes he does a dance. But he was quieter that night. Oh, he did get the room very clean, but there was no humming, singing, or dancing. Every once in a while, he'd stop.
Blue says hi.
Stop to shake and mumble. "Not right now, Blue. Hold on." What a thing to happen, or you just never know. I certainly didn't know what was going on, and I wish someone would have told me. When he finished, Aldo took out a sandwich and his thermos of coffee and sat in front of Og and me. He usually had his dinner break with us, and he always remembered to bring me veggies. "Here you go, Humphrey, old pal," he said as he pushed a sweet, crunchy celery stick into my cage. Thanks, I squeaked. Then he dropped a fishy frog stick into Og's tank. My neighbor splashed happily. "Hey, I was thinking about that Sherlock Holmes book," Aldo said. "I think I'm going to read that story about the redhead again." "Read it now," I begged. "Please?" But Aldo just ate and packed up his cleaning supplies and wheeled his cart out of room 26. "You two have a good night," he said as he switched off the lights. I was disappointed to see him go. It might be a long time before I had a chance to hear the end of that story. But after I thought about it some more, I decided to take things into my own paws. When I saw the lights of Aldo's car leave the parking lot near my window, I jiggled the lock that doesn't lock and opened my cage. First, I needed to talk to Og. I was thinking if we knew how Sherlock Holmes solved a mystery, maybe we could solve our own mystery, I squeaked. "Boing, boing," Og twanged. "I mean, the mystery of what happened to Mrs. Brisbane," I explained patiently. I try hard to be patient with Og because frogs don't always think like hamsters. I guess they wouldn't since they're different species. "Don't worry, Og," I said. "I have a plan." Aldo was very kindly left the blinds open so the street light outside lit up the room inside. I moved to the edge of the table and grabbed onto the leg. Taking a deep breath, I glided down. I've done it many times before. I was thrilling and slightly scary and definitely dangerous. Once I hit the floor, I scurried over to Mrs. Brisbane's desk. That desk is extremely tall for a hamster's eye view. I had another lucky break. Mrs. Brisbane's chair was pushed close to the drawers of her desk, so getting to the red book on top wouldn't be too difficult. I stood on my tippy toes and reached up to grab the bar between the chair legs. I used every ounce of strength I could gather to pull myself up. Then I grabbed the next highest bar and, oof, pulled myself up again. All the exercise I was spinning on my wheel and rolling my hamster ball had really made me a super strong hamster. Those veggies helped too. Next, I grabbed onto the arm of the chair and inched my way up to the seat. Whew! I was so tired my whiskers were wilting, but I was only halfway to my goal. Og sent me some encouraging boing boings. I rested for a few seconds, then reached up again, grabbed the edge of the desk, pulled myself up, and threw myself onto the desktop. Whew! Og splashed excitedly. After I caught my breath, I hurried over to the big book with the thick red cover. Along the side, in big black letters, it read, "The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes." I felt a little shiver as I looked at the pictures of the great man with the deerstalker hat. "Boing, boing, boing," Og called impatiently. Okay, I'm going to open the book," I squeaked. "We'll find out how to be detectives soon." I reached up to touch the edge of the top cover. Oomph! I pushed hard with both of my paws. Nothing happened. I pushed harder. Again, harder. Nothing happened. Again! "It's very heavy, Og," I squeaked, but I was so out of my breath, I'm sure he could hear me. I wish there were quite so many stories about Sherlock Holmes. When I failed to budge the cover of the third time, I decided to try something else. I looked around the desktop and saw a pencil. Maybe I could use that to push the cover open. I rolled it over to the book, propped it up under the cover, and gave it a mighty push. I pushed right back, I guess, and I fell backward. The pencil rolled off the edge of the desk. I hate to think that what would have happened if I would have rolled off the edge. As I tried to catch my breath, I heard Og splashing wildly. "Boing, boing, 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 boing!" "I'm all right, Og," I called to him, "but I can't get the book open." I'm not one to give up easily, but I was exhausted, and I knew it wouldn't be long before school began. It hadn't been a successful night, but it would be even worse if I got caught outside of my cage. So I slid down the side of the desk much faster than me climbing up. I raced across the floor and grabbed onto the long cord that hangs down from the blinds. Then came that hard part where I have to swing back and forth, higher and higher, until I was level with the top of the table. I let go and slid across the table, past Og's tank, right up the door of my cage. "I made it, Og," I told my friend. "Boing!" He sounded relieved. I was planning on a nice doze when I got back to my cage, but when I closed my eyes and was about to drift off, I remembered Mrs. Brisbane saying, "A clue is information that helps you solve a mystery. Sherlock Holmes is very good at finding clues." I didn't just remember her words, I could hear them in my tiny ears. I jumped up and raced to the side of my cage. "Og, Mrs. Brisbane said to look for clues. Let's see if we have any clues that would happen to her, of what happened to her." I grabbed the tiny notebook Miss Mac gave me long ago and the teeny pencil that goes with it. I keep it hidden behind my mirror in my cage. I opened it and began to write. Clue 1. Mrs. Brisbane didn't plan to be absent. The day before, she said, "See you in the morning." Clue 2. Mr. Morales didn't know Mrs. Brisbane would be absent. He said they were trying to reach her. That's why he took over the class until he got to get a substitute. Whatever happened was unexpected. Clue 3. Mrs. Wright said she was sure Mrs. Brisbane would be back tomorrow, but later in the day, Miss Mac and Mr. Morales both said she might be out for a while. So the story changed as the day went on. Clue 4. Aldo seems worried that something happened to Mrs. Brisbane, and that makes me unsqueakably worried too. My paw started shaking, so I quit writing. I wondered if Sherlock Holmes was ever as worried as I was that morning. Miss Swift unlocked the door to let Mr. E in. He had on a button with a big smiley face, and his big cloth bag looked even fuller than it had the day before. Once my fellow classmates arrived, Mr. Morales came in. His tie for the day had little red birds on it. "Class, your families were all notified last night about Mrs. Brisbane," he said. "As you know, Mr. E will be taking over." My friends all looked perfectly happy, but I was not. Principal Morales might have told all the families about Mrs. Brisbane last night, but nobody told me. Blow! Blow! Sorry. Would Mr. E be taking over just for now, or would it be forever? I was worried. I could hardly concentrate on our classwork that morning. Not that there was much. Mr. E started off the day by having all the students share jokes. That was their homework after all. My friends' jokes were pretty funny. Hurry Up Harry had a good one. Why does a stork stand on one leg? He asked. His answer, because if it raised both legs, it would fall down. And Rolling Rosie made everyone groan when she asked, "What's brown and sticky?" "A stick." Phoebe forgot to bring a joke. "But I know one," she said. "What do you say to a crying whale?" "Quit your blubbering." Everyone seemed so happy I began to think maybe nothing bad had happened to Mrs. Brisbane at all. Maybe she'd just gone on a vacation. But then I remembered her saying, "See you in the morning." I've learned enough about humans to know that they don't leave on vacations without planning ahead, especially a human like Mrs. Brisbane. Humphrey's Detectionary. Clues can make you worry, worry, worry. What do you think, guys? Tell me in the comments. What do you think? Do you think that Mrs. Brisbane is gone for a while, or do you think she'll be back soon? What happened to Mrs. Brisbane? What's going to happen to Blue in just a couple seconds? Chapter 5 for tomorrow. The Case of the Afternoon Accident. All right, guys. I'll see you tomorrow.